There are stories circulating on the internet that in India and elsewhere, the drug ribavirin has been shown to be effective against this virus. Yet, Homeland Security is telling the CDC not to make any announcements until stockpiles of the drug can be secured.
Well, Dr. Gupta, there continue to be evaluations of several drugs. Ribavirin is among them. But right now, our best defense has been social distancing. No handshaking, staying home when you're sick, washing your hands frequently.
Can you tell us to date how many people have died from this virus?
Very difficult. We're still working on confirming that number. There are 50 different states in this country, which means there are 50 different health departments, followed by 50 different protocols.
Let me bring in Alan Crumwoody into this debate as well. Alan's a freelance journalist. He was the first to track the Shinko Busman video. Alan, today on Twitter, you wrote that the truth about this virus is being kept from the world by the CDC, by the World Health Organization, to allow friends of the current administration to benefit from it, both financially and physically.
There are therapies we know are effective right now, like forsythia, and they don't even appear on the CDC website.
On your blog, you also wrote that the World Health Organization is somehow in bed with pharmaceutical companies.
Because they are. That's who stands to gain from this. They're working hand in glove. And the hand is reaching into our pockets.
The CDC is exploring forsythia and other homeopathic treatments, but right now, there's no science to back any of these claims.
Or no way Dr. Cheever or the people who put him into power can profit from it.
We're not ruling anything out. There are people who are sick, people who are dying, and we...
They're not keeping us safe from this any more than they kept us safe
about the
Wall Street or Katrina. Dr. Cheever is being a bit disingenuous when he says every American citizen.
We're working very hard to find out where this virus came from, to treat it and to vaccinate against it if we can. We don't know all of that yet. We just don't know. What we do know is that in order to become sick, you have to first come in contact with a sick person or something that they touched. In order to get scared, all you have to do is come in contact with a rumor or the television or the internet. I think what Mr. Crumwoody is spreading is far more dangerous than the disease.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes.
That's funny.
What's funny?
No, I think you're funny, because if you check on Facebook, you'll find a communique attributed to Dr. Cheever by Elizabeth Nygaard about the quarantine of Chicago, hours before it was announced to the public. That's why I think he's a bit disingenuous when he says equal care for all and not just his friends.
Some pretty wild allegations here, Dr. Cheever. I mean, can you tell us what communication appeared and when? What exactly is the nature of your relationship with Elizabeth Nygaard?
Well, again, I'm not aware of anything attributed to me on any social...
I'm sure you're not. It is there. It is there. Tell them what an R-naught of 2 really means, Dr. Cheever. Teach them some math,
Now, in a desperate attempt to fill 24 hours of programming, here's some bullshit that happened somewhere today. We've got some footage here of the bullshit, which began just after 3 o'clock this afternoon, when residents in this neighborhood were shocked to see this fairly common thing happening. An attractive witness described the event in breathless terms.
I went to my window and I was like, whoa, there's some bullshit happening.
That happened right over there. I'm an older man, so you can trust what I say.
Authorities in special uniforms rushed to the scene to stand around while our cameras filmed them. Our reporter Keith Collins joins us now live from the scene of the bullshit through the use of expensive technology. Good to be with you again, Keith. We have a colorful graphic here that shows instances of bullshit like this are on the rise. Is that right?
Yes, although why is unclear. Some say it's because of one fucking reason. Others say it's because of some other fucking reason. I talked to this random expert on the subject who told me this thing you're about to hear him say right after he points at a piece of paper.
I spent my entire life attending the nation's most prestigious schools to talk about bullshit like this. I'm really just happy to be on TV.
Now let's see if we can drag this out a little longer by showing emails written by some of our viewers. I once saw some stuff kind of like the shit you're talking about happen. I have nothing more to add. Another person says, I am angry that things like this happen. I get mad about every bullshit thing I see. So obviously a lot of opinions there to make this story seem somewhat meaningful.
Oh, absolutely, Glenn. This bullshit has some broader implications. Here's a list of tips on how to avoid bullshit happening to you.
And here's some footage of Congress.
Yes, I see that.
Well, thank you, Keith. Let us know if there are any updates on this bullshit story from there.
There's no way there will be.
Very good. We'll check back with you in an hour anyway.
I'm just some fucking guy.
When we return, we'll look at live footage of a car chase taken from a helicopter and free associate about what's going on.
Because you people and 62 million other Americans are listening to me right now. Because less than 3% of you people read books. Because less than 15% of you read newspapers. Because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. Right now, there is an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube.
What's life anyways but an opportunity to further end it? Screw it. On quarantine, every night is a Friday night. Every night, every day is a moment to get bent. Is it not that this predicament we have so swiftly been placed in, breeding our deepest and lowest natures, reinvigorating our forgotten vices and neglected old habits, switching our moderation to fixation, turning our guilty pleasures into involuntary compulsions, at the behest of our masterclass statesmen and scientific elite? What left decency have you? What left virtue exists in that little space you call man? That diminutive morsel called woman? Isolation has been scientifically proven to induce one with anxiety and depression, whereby abuse is encouraged, both self-harm and interpersonal dysfunction. Is it no surprise that domestic abuse hotlines are blowing up already? Within literally a matter of days under such confinement? Could suicide numbers increase as well over time? It would follow that within these conditions, child abuse would increase as well. Porn use is increasing, drug use is increasing, overall interpersonal abuse is increasing. Escapism has become God. What if all of this wasn't just some brash reaction to some vague and elusive virus, but designed and sculpted as an experiment, an operation of global proportions, knowing very well the implications and results spiritually and psychologically of its subjects? To add, aside from outright execution, death by gas, bullet, or rope, what is the most severe form of punishment and containment practiced for the most violent and unruly citizens by the state? Solitary confinement. Isolation. The antithesis of humanity's interpersonal nature. The death blow to the soul, an ultimate means to subdue it.
2020. Why people do what they are told. I've spoken with a lot of people since the nightmare of 2020 began and have heard a variety of common themes. How that everything is a hoax, we're all doomed, Jesus will save us, Trump will save us, maybe even that we don't deserve to be saved. One of the themes that seems to get hidden in all the noise and chaos is why so many people are going along with the insanity without any resistance at all. You know who I'm talking about. The sheep, the zombies, the drones, the mouth-breathing troglodytes, whatever you want to call them. They are everywhere, and despite how much pressure and heat are turned up on this civilization, they keep adjusting their daily lives and lurching forward, or in this case, backward. Yes, it's frustrating to watch. How is it that your friends, family members, and coworkers can't see the giant red flashing lights right in front of their face? How is it that they are comfortable turning on their own? How is it that they are actually helping to tear down their own civilization without wringing their hands and looking to the heavens for inspiration and guidance? The short and brutal answer is that it's built into us. It's not as bad as you think, but then again, it's also much worse. Let's get the good news out of the way first. It is very hard to get a person to actually kill another person. Even as late as World War II, only 20% of the armed soldiers had the nerve to actually pull the trigger and attempt to kill another human being. Most of us have no stomach for it. That, however, is where the mercy ends. Take away the direct hand-on-hand violence, and everything is back on the table. Anyone who has taken a psychology course in college may remember a vague description of an experiment where people were using electric shocks on each other. Officially, it's called the Milgram experiment, and it may not seem like much at first glance, but I think it has become very relevant in 2020. The experiment was first conducted at Yale University some 60 years ago, and it revolves around the obedience to authority. It was initially designed as a way to explain the psychology of genocide. In other words, were the Nazis an unusually cruel group, or does this apply to everyone under the right circumstances? The experiment was simple and ingenious in its design. You sign up for a run-of-the-mill psychology experiment in which you will get paid regardless of the outcome. You meet a supervisor and one other person just like yourself. At least, that's what they want you to think. There is no randomness in this little play. Both the supervisor and your fellow lab rat are in on the game. The supervisor draws out of a hat on who is going to ask the questions and who is going to answer them. Your name is picked to ask questions. It was, of course, predetermined. Your teammate goes into another room and is hooked up to a series of electrodes. You can't see him, only hear his voice through an intercom system. You ask your teammate a series of matching questions. If the answer was incorrect, you would administer a shock to the other person with a voltage increasing in 15-volt increments for each wrong answer. The volts ranged from 15 to 450. The shock generator included verbal markings that vary from slight shock to danger, severe shock. The subjects believed that for each wrong answer, the person was receiving actual shocks. In reality, there were no shocks. After the person went to another room, they set up a tape recorder integrated with the electroshock generator, which played pre-recorded sounds for each shock level. As the voltage of the fake shocks increased, the person began making audible protests, such as banging repeatedly on the wall that separated him from you. In every condition, the person makes or says a predetermined sound or word. When the highest voltages were reached, the subject fell silent. If at any time you indicated a desire to halt the experiment, the supervisor was instructed to give specific verbal prods. The prods were in this order: please continue or please go on. The experiment requires that you continue. It is absolutely essential that you continue. You have no other choice. You must go on. The professors predicted that only 1 to 3% of all subjects would continue and keep upping the voltage until their partner passed out and died. What really happened, though, showed our true nature. During the first set of experiments, 65%, 26 out of 40, subjects pushed the button and killed their teammate with the final massive 450-volt shock. And all subjects made it to at least 300 volts. The professor's conclusion was easy to make and haunting. The extreme willingness of adults to go to almost any lengths on the command of an authority constitutes the chief finding of the study, and the fact most urgently demanding explanation. Ordinary people simply doing their jobs and without any particular hostility on their part can become agents in a terrible destructive process. Moreover, even when the destructive effects of their work become patently clear and they are asked to carry out actions incompatible with fundamental standards of morality, relatively few people have the mental resources needed to resist authority. And as the experiment was refined, it got worse. If you conducted the experiment when there was another actor already there shocking another person, then the power of conformity set in, and the chance of you killing the person in the next room goes up over 90%. This experiment has been repeated many times over the years in different states and countries, and the results are what you might expect. People do as they are told. They bend and break their own personal values if someone in authority asks them to. They follow orders, even if it causes the destruction of the world around them. You, however, are different. If you are listening to this, then you understand right and wrong. Authority has its place, but it can only go so far before you stand your ground. It helps me sleep to know that there are at least a few of you out there in the world, carving small caves of sanity out of the madness. Don't forget, however, that when you walk the streets, most of the people around you are not you. They listen to the media and do whatever it says, no matter how illogical. Remember that to most, the media is now the ultimate authority. To quote a favorite movie of mine, we believe the world that is presented to us. And currently, that world is being shaped by the faces on our phones. Remember that, and stand strong, because the next big experiment is right around the corner.
Just pick up something and now strive high. Big thing jump, you say how?